All right. Welcome back for the final day of TechCon 2025. Such an informative 2 days. Lots of new material. Hope you guys are getting a lot out of this, and we are going to keep that going on day 3. We've got Harry and Jim joining us now to dive into our ELM product and talk about the entire life cycle from a lifecycle management perspective. And with that, let me turn it over to, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Harry first, if you want to kick things off. And then please, just a quick reminder, if you've got questions throughout the session, throw those in the chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout the session. And then, Harry, you want to go ahead and kick it off?
All right. Well, hello, I'm Harry Donaghy. I'm the global sales lead for ELM. Everything we do here is an acronym. So let me explain. ELM is what we refer to as the Engineering Lifecycle Management tools. It is a suite of tools. Okay, so it is not just one specific thing. But today, what we want to do is touch on, how some of our larger projects and customers use our tools to make sure that they do the right thing and build the right product. So again, building the right product with requirements and testing. So Jim, why don't you push this out, build it out the rest of the way. I like that. All right, I appreciate it. So to set the stage for this whole presentation, I want to address the fact that the products that our customers are building or that you're building are very complex and couldn't even, some of it we have difficulty understanding everything that's going on. So what's happening here is more and more software is having to be developed. Systems have many chips, many different buses, everything going on, a lot of different things going in every different direction. All right, so the products are more and more complex. AI. Every time we turn the corner, we're seeing AI, or we're opening up a web page and some chatbots there, or something's happening. But that's the easy part. There's more AI being built into our products or into products that are, you all are helping build. Cars are becoming smarter. Medical devices are becoming smarter. Things of that nature. So, we're trying to be able to support companies, organizations that are doing this type of work, ensuring that things are safety critical, they adhere to the standards, because, when you're looking at aerospace or medical devices or automotive, you want to make sure you get it right the first time. We can't have any kind of mistakes. So where I want to touch on here is, the fact that there's a lot of requirements, and once you have all the requirements for all these systems that you're building, you want to have your tests to be able to tie to this. But what we want to look at here today is being able to look at the requirements and the testing and how they tie together and see the visibility that you will need between the two, show some traceability and things of that nature, just to show you what the ELM product line can do for you. Jim, thanks. So many areas have many of the areas here have complex engineering needs, and we see the value in requirements and testing in industries like, you see here, aerospace and defense, automotive, electronic devices. We also, find a lot of value in, we always, requirements and testing and traceability and visibility is important in financial services also. There's all kinds of needs in any industry that can, you could get hurt if it's not done right, or you could lose all your money if it's not done right. So where we are, these industries are where we provide the most benefit due to our focus areas. These are customers. Our customer base has complex systems of systems. They have to adhere to regulations, so we follow the compliance. Safety and mission critical. They're also to one of the biggest issues right now is being a distributed workforce. With the wonders of what's gone over in the last few years, more and more distributed work is occurring. We're working not only across the country but across the globe. So these are items, areas that we focus on and efforts that you have to overcome. So visibility, again, is a key to this whole effort. Jim? Okay, so the Engineering Lifecycle Management Suite, so that's ELM, helps with the situations I've been describing. This System V is typical for the design and development of complex projects. So what you have here is on the left-hand side, you have your different phases, both on the left and right, different areas of what you're going to try and do to help, with your project. So on the left-hand side, you usually have you have your requirements, your analysis, your design, your earlier stages of your project. Then up your right-hand column, you have your verification, validation, your testing. So the important thing here is being able to, as you create your requirements and you have your tests and your test plans, your test cases, you have traceability between the two. You can actually connect one to the other to ensure that whatever you are supposed to build, you are testing and it's being done properly. Okay, so this allows for the visibility. Along with visibility, we have things like being able to see, just because you're, setting up your traceability, you want to be able to see what you're doing. So we do have the ability here to also create reports, show dashboards, do a variety of other things which would be, help out with this effort. So visibility is key to the success of projects. And that's pretty much why we're here today, is to be able to show you how we would do it with the ELM suite of tools and, to help you benefit in using the tools and see the value. So, Jim, do we have a question here?
Only question here, I think.
Yeah.
And
Here's the polling question. Okay, so
not sure.
there's a poll is live.
No worries.
Looking to see the poll question. I'd like to read it just in case people don't realize where it is.
I can read it out here if that's helpful.
That would help me out. I mean,
Yep, no worries. So there's a poll question available now. If you click on your video player, the question is, how effectively does your organization currently manage efforts to ensure complete traceability between requirements and test cases? And the results won't be visible to you, Harry.
Okay, but no worries. So that's kind of the topic we want people to talk about or think about as we're having this discussion today in this presentation, right? So when we go here, so basically, when we're talking about that traceability, we're talking about kind of the digital thread, across our different assets and artifacts in the life cycle of development, right? That's requirements to test to, even down to mechanical and electrical designs, software level, and all this kind of stuff that would go into building some kind of system, right? That has many components to it. You're trying to manage all of that. It becomes very difficult. So with that digital thread that we're trying to complete, gives us ideas to see impact of change, ensuring compliance to regulatory standards that we might have to meet for safety reasons, etc., and then managing reuse of those across various variants of products we make. Right. Okay. So when we look at it kind of in another way here across the life cycle, there's all kinds of documentation, documents, what we call artifacts that simply define what we're doing, how we did it, how we changed it, and all that kind of stuff, right? So for today, though, we're going to zoom in a little bit and focus on specifically kind of requirements piece and then the test plan piece, how we manage the test to verify that what we built was what we said we're going to build, and did it work appropriately, and is it safe to use, right? So that's kind of where we're going to jump into that. So let's talk first about the requirements, right? We have a requirements management solution within ELM that kind of allows us to manage what we're going to build and how we're going to build it, right? You think of, you know, when we get very more and more complex, and everything is more complex these days, right? With the amount of software that goes into anything these days, it becomes more and more complex. And how do we manage that? We use a tool. So how do we ensure, you know, think about a couple of questions. How do we ensure that everybody's working off the same data? Using the typical Word and Excel does not work for that, right? Who has the current copy? That sort of thing is very difficult to manage that. Well, are we all following the same process, right? How do we manage traceability between high-level requirements and lower-level requirements and other types of artifacts? How do we know that we've met regulation standards and things like that? And then on top of that, when the customer comes back and wants to make a change to something, how do we know what that impact of the change is? That becomes very, very difficult. And we're trying to manage that with the tool here. So let me go in. I'm going to go into live presentation mode here. And we're going to show within the tool itself. So we started out with the dashboard here. I've got a product which is a aviary drone system that has a drone itself, a control unit, and various kind of phone type of viewing devices that kind of see what's going on. And we're tracking all kinds of things with the LM around task management, you know, how is the thing being developed, to requirements, to tests, and all that kind of stuff. So let's focus on the test part of this first. As we saw in a previous diagram, the level of requirements is important to manage, right? So this is just a diagram that we're displaying. Kind of, we start out with stakeholder requirements. It goes down. This is kind of the user, what the customer wants, and then it goes down to a higher level system requirements, what the system's supposed to do. And then we can start breaking that up into the different components. Hummingbird is the flight drone itself. And its specific requirements of the drone, specifically how it relates back up to what the customer is asking for, right? And of course, what software is going to be included in there and how is that related? So we're trying to keep track of all of that information and how it's related to each other. So let's start out at the stakeholder level here within our tool here. And see if I got a good connection here. There we go. Okay, so basically I've just opened up the stakeholder requirements, and this is going to look a little bit kind of like a typical Word document, but we have different ways we can view it as Word documents or Excel type of things. So we've got columns on top. We have individual IDs of the objects, so we can come in here and just make simple changes, you know, to our requirements as we want to. Note that as I do, there's a little locking mechanism over here. Basically, what this tells me is that I can have multiple people inside the same document at the same time making changes, and everybody sees the current version of what our requirements are. What are we building, right? Like I said, with Word or Excel, that's just not feasible to pass around the document and be able to do that. And of course, because we have unique IDs as to each individual object or artifact, we track who changed what and when. so we can always understand what changes happened and who did them. Right, very important for us for audit control of our requirements, especially when we have very life-critical systems. Aircraft, automobiles, medical devices, except stuff like that, where people can obviously get hurt when something happens. So within the tool here, we're also trying to track, specifics about the requirements. So, stakeholder requirements, attributes that may further define what a requirement's supposed to do. We can put, customer or user-defined attributes. Could be a process, could be a priority set on something, and define what that is, and decide here what kind of demonstration or a verification method we want to use. We can set that up front, and that could come into play a bit later when we're getting into our test. So from our stakeholder requirements now, we want to show traceability down to what lower level requirements are being satisfied or are satisfying these stakeholder requirements, right? So when we do that, we can create traceability using simple drag and drop from one requirement to a next, or we can use a menu driven to do that. But in this case here, I've got a column on the right that this stakeholder requirement on the left is being satisfied by some lower level requirement. And I can see what that is by simply popping it up and seeing what that object looks like. Note here all these different attributes that we can define as well. Some are filled out, some are not yet, but we can define any number of attributes that further define what our requirements are. Okay. And we can actually follow those by simply clicking on it. These are hyperlinked. And it brings up that now we're in the aviary system requirements, moving from the stakeholder down to the system, right? So we can see the various levels of traceability upstream and downstream in the two columns here as that fills out for us to look at. So what this helps us do is we start to build relationships and traceability across different artifacts in the system. We can start to understand, see for example here, we've got various requirements that I can see upstream. This is where it originated from, and downstream different things that are being affected or being developed at the lower level, and I can see that traceability. Within the tool now, we can also do some really nice impact analysis type of view. Get this to show up for us here. My slow connection has taken just a minute to fill in, I hope. There we go. So I can see kind of, this traceability look view of from one level, what it is satisfying, other things that it's being satisfied by. And I can see kind of this full understanding of what an impact of a change might be. I can look at this system requirement. If it was modified, does it affect other related objects that I might want to take a look at and understand the impact of change, right? So these are just some of the views, but we're tracking all that for you, that you don't have to worry about what's related to what. The system helps manage that information for us. Okay? So let's dive down a little bit lower now into the Hummingbird area here. So also we're now remember we're now kind of 3 levels down into this level here, right? So we're kind of diving in a little bit deeper and deeper each way. And we can see again the traceability back up, that this requirement is satisfying a higher level aviary system requirements, but we're inside the Hummingbird, right? So that traceability for us is being maintained very nicely. We do also have some built-in, notice these green check marks and the question marks here. These are just simply kind of link indicators that tells us that something related to that has been modified. So I don't have to go and ask anybody, hey, did you make a change to something? I can easily see this with the question mark that something's been modified, and I might want to look at it to see if I need to make any changes myself. So very cool stuff that I want to keep track of. Now, we talked about creating relationships between requirements to requirements, but there is also the need to create relationships between our requirements and our tests and test efforts, right? And we also see that visible directly within our requirements set. We can see a traceability column into various test efforts that might be going on. And let me jump back to the presentation for just a second here. And I'm going to jump into this. So now we've kind of covered this piece a little bit, but we now want to go from requirements into test cases, right? So the test cases might include, what we're supposed to be testing against the requirement, and then the test script is actually how we're doing that test, right? So we're going to trace these two pieces there, and we're going to use that in our test management tool. And in this test management tool, basically, as an organization, we want to make sure our things are safe. So we can't afford to deliver, untested, poor quality products or services that might affect our customers, our reputation, whatever. So we want to make sure we don't struggle on the quality, but keep it in sync with our iterations and releases that we're working on. So talking about that traceability, test management is a big piece of that traceability that we want to manage, that digital thread, as we say. How do we guarantee that all the requirements are defined, that have been defined, are now being tested and that they're successful? What kind of result do we have? Do we have complete test? Proving that what the product does what it's supposed to do, what we said it should do, right? So there are kind of different important factors of that's built into the tool for us automatically, right? So the test planning piece is simply, what are we going to release in an iteration or a release? How do we have everything in there? Is it associated to a particular requirement? The test construction piece is, the testing effort. What are we going to click on? Is it a manual test? Is it an automated test? That kind of thing that we want to keep track of. And then the full on top of that is the team aware of what's going on, right? With an ELM tool like this, we have complete visibility across the life cycle. The requirements analysts get visibility into what the tests are. The testers can easily see what the requirement people are doing and be able to see those in various dashboard audit to make it easy for audit control and understanding what's going on. Okay, so let's go back out to the tool itself again. So like I said, so we have the requirements here. We see tests on the right here. We can see the various status of some, hover on those, and we can see, latest result status if we want. We can click in there if we want to get to it as well. But all that information can be visible to us directly from the requirement side and understand the status of those tests against our requirements. So let's follow one of those in. Let's jump into a test plan. And our test plan is just, we're going to call it managing power on the Hummingbird, right? Now, notice this may look very similar to what we're kind of looking at, the headers up here within the ELM solution, but now we're actually in the test management piece. Okay? And within the test management piece, we have understanding of what this test plan is going to be. We simply have a direct link to what the requirements are here that we want to track in this test plan. We can see a kind of a traceability across there of what the requirements are and what test cases have been associated to those. In this case here, I've got some gaps that I might want to do. I can also do a reconcile against a set of requirements that tell me automatically, hey, you've got some requirements here that don't have test cases yet. So this is some of the automation that's built into the tool that allows us to say, you know what, I need to create some test cases for these requirements, and I'm going to automatically generate 2 test cases here. Okay. And the system allows us to do that for us. Next, and look, we've got them filled in now. We've got basically test case stubs now defined based upon these requirements that we just had. Okay, so the system's helping us ensure that we have complete traceability and coverage of our requirements. Okay, So those are the requirements. So we're in testing, but we see the requirements that are being utilized for our test cases. We can now look at the various test cases as well. Specifically, here's the test case and also the related requirements that are there to keep track of. So as a tester, I will be able to visualize what requirements need tests and start doing that very quickly and not wait for requirements to be completely done. Okay, so I can do that very quickly and get that done. Other things you can do within this is track the test case executions, right? So when I do an execution, I can each time that I run that test, it's keeping track of those individual executions. So they may be, it may be failed on one and then passed on the next and that kind of thing. So it's keeping track of that information for us. So let me pick one here. So this test case here, 94. I can see exactly kind of what the test script here that I can define is what that test is supposed to do. And it's basically, kind of defining what it's supposed to be. So connect up, power up, set the timer, run the timer. So these are kind of manual tests in this case, right? To go ahead and understand what the system is supposed to do. Right. So let me go here and let's see if it gets to work for us. And the kind of cool thing here is that, when I want to run a test, I just, go ahead and click on execute that test, and I can come in now. So I'm actually tracking the results now. So connect to, and it's telling me what to do, right? And so connect the fully charged battery to the Hummingbird, and then I can make a comment. And I can say that passed. And I go to power up and come in here. And for some reason, say I go to test it, but it fails, right? What I can do now is I can initiate basically a new defect or a bug against the test that I just ran. And note here, this is kind of cool. I can connect it to our ELM workflow management tool, or I can connect it to, for example, Jira if I'm using that for task management and stuff like that, right? So once I do that, I can create the bug. And kind of a cool thing here is as it's doing this, it's, it's actually keeping track of what I did for us automatically. What was the test plan, the case, the script, what was the area that I was doing, additional comments I can make in here. But the nifty thing about it, though, is when I look at the newly created bug, I can open that up. Save this first. We'll say that failed. And let's go ahead and click on it and open it up. Okay, so now this is the defect that was created outside of that test. All the information that it said, I know where it's coming from, but not only that, I actually have given the links directly to what was the requirement that we were testing, and then it gives me the option now to go look and say, was this requirement wrong, or was it built wrong, or whatever. I can see the test case result, the test case itself, and the test plan it was a part of. So all this stuff is directly linked to across that full life cycle for us. Makes it very simple to understand what's going on. I don't have to go back and go, hey, that failed. What really happened? Do you know? And then we can start assigning that to people to look at and understand how to fix that defect and then retest. Right? So on top of all of that, we started with some of these dashboarding capabilities, which gives us visibility into. Let me go back here. I want to go back to a couple areas here. So on the testing dashboard, we might be able to look at different things so we can see status of the tests against, pass and fail status very easily. to understand completeness of our releases or iterations. We can also see more at a high level the various dashboards of all the tasks are being done. But on top of that, actually, I want this one, and I'm going to switch. Different dashboards we can define to give us information about how the system's doing these cool status of. One that I do like is this one here, which is a nice, again, a kind of a digital thread and impact of understanding change. So we can see, here's the high level stakeholder requirement, dipping down to system requirements, lower level others, Hummingbird system, right? That's our drone system. And the tests that were done to it and the results, right? So we can see the full digital thread of that, of what we're working on, right? So it makes it very, very cool, very, very cool to manage. So let me go back to our presentation again. So a couple of things I did want to point out. Within our testing tool, we can use manual tests, of course, like I just showed, and easily set those up to track our test cases. We do have continuous integration testing that can also be utilized on an iteration, on a deployment, or a build, do a test, link it to various testing solutions like our IBM DevOps test and things like that that can allow us to do that. We can also connect to a command line adapter for automated testing. And so basically on that test, instead of doing a manual test, we want to do an automatic test against a system. And then that result from that command line can be brought back in and related directly to that test case we just did. And of course, that relates back all the way to the requirements as before. For example, here's just an example of Selenium JUnit. Of course, that adapter we can just basically plug in to run some script that it has to verify that those tests are set. Okay. So this is kind of what we just did, right? We went from system requirement to software to lower level requirements, and then we created test cases and test scripts and ran those, and then we got a result down here that was not good. We created a defect, right? So we have this full traceability across here all the way down to the defect. Okay, so that's kind of a high level demonstration of our requirements management to test management to a workflow item within ELM itself. So from that, kind of different ideas that we want to start thinking about within our own product management that we do, whatever we're developing, right? We see this kind of a maturity model as people are trying to become more and more in control of their complex products and systems that they're building, right? Most people are down here on this bottom end. Is we want to at least get baselines, a snapshot in time, understanding when changes happened across that time, right? To take that up the stream here is we're managing that change in a little more control of who changed what and when, why they changed it in a full auditable trail built in the system. Next level on top of that, as this becomes more and more difficult, that our ELM tool helps to provide more easily is parallel development. Product variance is, kind of thing is, for example, this one here in an aircraft, right? There are variants of the same system. Think of, I'm just going to use Boeing 737 as an option. You have different versions of that based upon seating arrangements and, engine size and things like that. But in reality, they share a lot of requirements, test features, and things like that that are going to be reused across all of those different variants. But our system helps you manage that kind of 80-20 rule in the development process, right? As you start to think about this, what a very complex system is, and trying to manage all of the different development artifacts requirements that are literally in the tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of requirements to understand how things should be built safely. Okay. Any comments on that, Harry? Before I move?
So actually, Jim, go back one slide.
Yep.
So with this, as it says there, maturity, what that pretty much says is that people have been doing the baselines for a long, long time, but there's very little automation with it. And as you go up that maturity line, you need to have tools that understand how to do these and help you out with it. These aren't things you're going to do by hand or try to do by script. If you do them by script, you probably started your own company to do it, because there's very few people who can do configuration management across, especially requirements and testing across an entire life cycle of products. So this is where, something, again, the maturity goes up, the tools you use become more complex, and that's where we come into play also. So
Great.
I want to drop down. So, as Jim was saying here, he covered a lot about requirements and tests. There's a lot more to developing a product than just requirements and tests. Of course, everything's important, doing modeling, having your workflow, your planning, your tasking, making sure your change management's there, your things of that nature. Having traceability across all of these items and being able to see the visibility across all these items are key. And this is where the ELM system comes into play. But we also realize we're not the only person walking down the street. So we actually have our foundation is open. It's built off of a technology called OSLC, or Open Services for Lifecycle Collaboration. And we work well with other products also, because we know that, you might want to use Jenkins. Guess what? You can plug Jenkins in. You might want to use GitLab. We have integrations there with GitLab. Okay, so things of that nature. So again, we realize, everyone doesn't just choose one solution. You have multiple solutions. So we've taken that into account. We are an open platform. All right, so that's something, to help with your visibility, because, it's always one of the questions. If I'm using such and such, can that be included in my digital thread? Well, in most cases, the answer is yes. So, all right, so Jim, jump to the next slide for me. All right, so one thing that we're working on, and we've had a lot of, I'm going to call it fun with, because it's, at one point it was a science project, and now it's becoming more and more real. So one of these things where, our AI assistants, and here's an example of it. What if you could ask, what if, wow, I can't even read that, can I? What if you could ask questions of your requirements in a natural language and get useful answers? Because when you're dealing with large systems and you just don't have 10 requirements, you have thousands of requirements. And for you to know everything and how your requirements are structured and all your traceabilities, from your system requirements to your, stakeholder requirements, software requirements, everything, you need help with that. Especially if you're relatively new to a project, you'd be able to come in and ask certain bits of information, ask a question and you get a response. So this is one of the things that we're working on, being able to have, I'm going to call it a chat bot, but in essence, a chat bot, to be able to ask it information and it provide back a response that is of value, in order to, get what you're looking for. We're also looking, as we're doing this, we're, looking at expanding some of this over to models. For your architecture. We're also looking to allow you to build your own automations to this. So if you have an idea that you want to build something specific, you'd be able to do that and add it in. So this is kind of the direction we're going to help when you're working requirements and you're going through your development process, and you ultimately get your, try to set up your full digital thread, be able to go out and query information out of the ELM platform and gather good responses to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So this is an area which we're heading into. So basically, insight into, you could ask, what's my impact analysis? The idea of, what's the insight into true cost of a proposed change. So anyway, and the good thing here is that this is not something that other people you're going to be sharing out anywhere. This is your data is your data. And that's the important thing with many of these projects that we work with and many of the companies we work with. There's always a concern of, what happens if I do something with this, who's going to get access to it? Nobody. So this is, we take security very seriously when it comes to what we're adding in the AI side of things. You want to step forward? Okay, so with the ELM tool suite, we've been around a long time. We continue to innovate. We continue to add new capabilities. We stay up with all the new standards, and we are in most, every large OEM, all the large defense contractors, medical manufacturers. So you see where we are very active in many of the industries. And actually, I'm just going to jump to the next one, Jim, because this is actually, I lied. Go to the next one. This is where I like to start, actually. Okay, so this is why it is so important to do what we've been describing and what Jim is showing. So this is a news, this is an older one, but from 2014, but it gets the point across because it's not a joke. France built their railway, and they ordered their trains, and they found out the trains were too wide to fit into the stations. Oops. So I guess there would be a thing here of, it only cost them, 50 million euro only. But the reality here is this is where good requirements management and good traceability and impact analysis, because I know Jim went into impact analysis. Impact analysis comes into play significantly. Okay, so now if you want to roll back one, and one of our excuse me. So one of our case studies that we work with is one of our customers who is in the automotive industry. This is Bury. They are a manufacturer of electronic components. They supply information and communication systems for the automotive industry to many of the OEMs. They came to us and they had their processes were not where they wanted. They struggled getting things out. They came to us ultimately, and we worked with them and a business partner to help get them their requirements up and running on Doors Next. We helped tie all their testing into our test management process, set up all the traceability, and they were able to, by doing all this, they were able to achieve their ISO 26262, which is the safety standard, and also the ASPICE standard. So they adhered to those standards, and they were able to get past all those audits. So again, this is an example of where one of our customers has adopted our products. They became successful. They got their products out quicker, and they passed their audits, because without that, they're not going anywhere. With that being said, if there's any questions, Jim and I are here to answer them. And actually, Andy, I think, has already pushed that out. If there's any questions, that's and the trying to think the results of the poll. So 50% of the people commented that moderately traceability, but some gaps. 25% traceability is inconsistent, and then We had a small amount that were clean traceability and coverage analysis, and then also a small amount saying struggle for any traceability. So we have quite the variety. So I feel that's, you know, the information that, especially that Jim showed you on how the tool's used and the, you know, art of the possible, could come in handy. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're always willing to take a call. Thanks.
Jim and Harry, thank you so much for walking us through the ELM solution suite. Again,